Welcome to Free and Accepted Podcasting, Suffolk Freemasons podcast designed to inform, entertain and educate. Welcome to another episode of Suffolk Freemasons Free and Accepted podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by my new co-host, Roger Corsten. Hello, Roger.
Hello, Mark. Pleased to be with you.
Lovely. And Larry Bensusan, who has a dual title at the moment.
I have a dual title, yes. I'm not too sure which title I should be here as. I'm the Provincial Orator and Learning Development Officer.
And one might morph into the
they
other.
morph into one. I think the idea is that the orators, UGLE, have decided that the orators will become Learning Development Officers. So my certificate still says orator, but
the PGM says something slightly different.
Yes, yeah.
You share with us your experience at the last PGM.
Well, when Jolien actually was about to become Provincial Grand Master, he and I were in the corridor lining up ready to come in. And he just said to me, "Larry, what is your title?" And I said to him, "Well, I'm not sure, Jolien. I think it's orator. It's down an orator on my certificate. But I think I'm also Learning Development Officer." So he then said to me, "Larry, I think Learning Development Officer sounds much better than orator." We went in. And then when Ian did his little bit where we all stood up and the last man standing was Provincial Grand Master, I realised that Jolien was actually setting me up in a way.
Excellent. So your title is Learning and Development.
I'm Learning Development. So now.
How long have you been in that role?
So from the orator, it was 2020, and Learning Development has been about 2 years. So in total, it's come up to my 5th year. In sort of provincial executive.
But only 2 years as learning development. So you've got another 3 years at least to go.
Oh yeah.
That's why they've changed the title.
That's right.
That's right, exactly. I think that's probably why, actually.
Now I'm gonna cover your personal life because it's a fascinating life that you've had. It really is. But what have you enjoyed about the role? Because your interest in the history of Freemasonry is really quite deep, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, I'm fascinated by where the rituals came from and what was behind them. And I think, and the characters that were there when it was sort of set up. And in the past, I've read a lot of books which takes you back to the 17th, 18th century to try to get a feel of what was really going on at that time and how it was developed. And you can see, I think sometimes you start to see maybe things were lost along the way our interpretation of what was happening has slowly got slightly lost. I think the esoterical side of it is sort of interesting because it's some people, obviously you can interpret that in different ways, but I think there's a deepness behind the rituals. I always think of them as, I did a martial art a long time ago, and we would do just form, and you'd learn your form. And rituals are like that. You learn the form, but once you've understood the form, underneath that is something much deeper than just the form.
Do you think things got changed when the ancients and the moderns got together, or?
Well, they had to come together. And in some respects, the ancients talk about the moderns that they actually stopped. They were cheating. They were not really doing the ceremony correctly. The ancients was the correct way to do it. And in some respect, there is a little bit of truth on that. Because I think, I'm not sure the date, but before the Union, the moderns actually set up a group to try to change the ritual closer to the ancients. So there is some truth in that.
And there's a play on words on that, isn't there? Because the moderns isn't the moderns and the ancients aren't the ancients. That's the other way around. Is that right?
The moderns, in terms of Grand Lodge, they were the first Grand Lodge. It was the modern group that set up the Grand Lodge. The ancients came after them. But I think there were, if you take the names away, they were both operative a long time ago, actually, as a group.
Because you've looked at the forefathers. Now, you were saying that Isaac Newton wasn't a Mason.
Isaac Newton wasn't a Mason, but John Discudios was his assistant. So he would have been, John was the third Grand Master, and he would have been influenced by, I would assume, I certainly would, by Isaac Newton. And one thing that was different between Isaac, he was into the Kabbalah and various other very strange things, actually, that besides these sort of great scientific feats. But John Discudios was into mechanics. And one of the things which I think, when you look into a lodge, you'll see that the Lewis gadgetry is the only mechanical gadgetry we have in the lodge. So it's possible that came from John Discudios.
Incredible. And you were really interested in the forefathers as well, weren't you? So when you went back into that, you really looked into detail about them as well.
Yeah, I mean, Elias Ashmole, who's the first of the people that we have an awareness of him being in a lodge meeting. He was a very bizarre man in so many ways, obviously a very talented man, but he was into alchemy and Kabbalah, and he used to do horoscopes for the ladies. He was he was always looking for a wife. And he used to see them, shouldn't he? Yeah, I think he realised it was not such a good idea sometimes, but he would do these horoscopes for the ladies and sort of tell them about their fortunes and things like that.
Perhaps he was looking for their fortunes.
Yeah,
well, you are right on that as well.
Yeah.
There is some articles that you read, and you sort of see that he was sort of trying to set up a fortune for himself.
Good man.
So under your orator or now learn and development page, what are the highlights that you've done in the last sort of couple of years?
Well, one of the things is I set up some seminars which I wanted to promote around the province. It was originally aimed at the DCs and the mentors, but I soon opened it up to other people. And we even had a guy there who'd just taken his second, and it was really good. I think I learned a lot from it. I realised that many of the lodges are not used in Solomon. They're aware of it, but they're not used in Solomon, in the UGL Solomon, that is, in their learning lodge of instruction, and also even in their lodges. But when you think of lodge of instruction, it would make sense to every so often have something which they can discuss about Freemasonry.
Mm-hmm. And Solomon's a very easy tool to get hold of. It's not tucked in the doldrums on the
No, I mean it is a website. You just go into the website, you sign yourself in, and from then onwards you've got access to all the material that's in there. You just have to be honest. If you're an entered apprentice, don't go into the third degree.
No,
because it's all there.
Because when you touched on lodge of instruction, and I'd sometimes wonder, is there too much emphasis on learning the passage that you are asked to learn verbatim, so you never actually fully understand what you're reciting? Because the effort is in remembering it, not understanding it.
I think that's absolutely true. It's very difficult to really, as I was saying earlier, the depth underneath that ritual, that it's really what's being said, is quite profound, profound. And it is lost. And I think if only learn a lodge of instruction, they would bring some of that in and just take one aspect. Something which I have started, we haven't spoke about, is a Masonic interest group, which we run here. It's open to everyone, free, come along, and we discuss elements of the ritual and elements of, I mean, the last meeting we went through the Regis manuscript, which is the earliest known records of Masonry in 1399 of a document.
Is that proven to be successful?
Very successful. It's people are actually interested in this sort of aspect because it's building blocks through Masonry, and I think that's sometimes one of the problems that people come into Masonry, they start to do the rituals, and to them it's really boring. It's just repetitive over and over and over again.
They're not understanding that. What I often find, if I'm at a lodge meeting and as group rep, I heard some fantastic ritual,
Absolutely,
over the 5 years, and the ones that really got me were the ones that not only recited it, but they put some intonation that I understood more what they were talking about.
Yeah,
and that's after 25 years of masonry.
Yeah.
And that made it more enjoyable.
We can get a bit complacent with what we do all the time, especially lodge of instruction. We follow the process because we did a second, we'll do a second in lodge of instruction. And as you say, the guys come away and not really learning anything. And lodge of instruction is about learning and instruction.
But I think that if almost as a group within a lodge, it would be useful to discuss what are the requirements. We're in so much of a habit of just doing it because this is the way it was done, and yet I sort of working with some of the younger lads that have literally just come into Masonry, and it's quite refreshing to actually hear the sort of things that they will say, and they're inquisitive. Really inquisitive.
Yeah, they want to know, why do we square the lodge? Why do you do this? Why do you wear that? Why do you do? And for some people, they can't actually answer that question.
I think there's also a debate which I know has been had and continues to be had is what we've got fit for the modern day Mason and the modern day candidate. And I love the tradition of it, but at some point, I don't know if there's a learning development or a BGM role or whatever, that we need to morph something that attracts and keeps people.
Yeah, I think it's actually when you look at the research of what people want, you find that actually history, understanding about the esoterical side of the rituals, the percentage is really high. It's, when I say really high, you would be looking at 46% of your lodge would desperately want that. And you can imagine if you're not giving it to them, you've got a chance of 40% leaving, actually.
Yeah. And because people have got busy lives nowadays and not everybody wants to deliver ritual.
No.
And I think we've almost got into that position where if you're not being asked to deliver ritual, why are you coming? And perhaps we do need, and the learning development is probably a better title. Because people probably didn't understand what orator was.
No, sorry.
It should almost be learning, development, and encouraging, really, shouldn't it? Because we want to encourage brethren to come into lodge, but enjoy the art of learning. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much, isn't there, that you can learn about in Freemasonry. I've been saying in the past sometimes about, the musicians that were Freemasonry. I was listening to the proms the other day, and they were doing Beethoven's Fifth. Beethoven was a Mason, and the conductor stood up and she spoke to the people, to the TV audience, that this particular piece is from darkness to light. Well, that's what the rituals are, from darkness to light. And you can imagine having the fifth, that Beethoven symphony, and as it starts to go through, well, wonderful. How about having that in a lodge of instruction and chat about that?
Yeah.
It's not just
that's right.
not just ritual.
So do you think Rick Wakeman's journey to the centre of the earth had anything to do with that?
I suspect so.
We'll have to ask him. Get my podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
Yeah. So going back to your seminars, they were well received across the province.
Yeah, they were.
I actually attended one, and we had a special guest.
We had a very special guest. It was Jolene's dog.
Yeah.
What a fantastic dog. I wanted to take it home. It was just amazing. It just sort of sat in the corner. Wonderful. Wonderful addition.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I was doing a show today in a Mason, They're not linked to masonry on this one, but they do dog therapy, and this will mean a lot. We'll come on to your other life, Larry, but they take the dog into care homes. They take it into the police control room. The dog, and they're so gentle, just calming everything down.
Well, it's like the ones they take in hospitals.
Exactly. Yeah.
Suddenly, somebody's got arthritic and can't do anything. Suddenly, they can stroke the dog. It's amazing.
I think Jolene just said the dog wasn't listening, so he fell asleep. It was a
lot of instruction.
That sort of said a lot about my seminar.
Well, and what did the seminars include? What subjects did they include?
Well, the first half was I posed a lot of questions because I wanted to find out what people were thinking. And so just something really basic is, what is Freemasonry? And I was so surprised with the answers that I got. And none of them actually touched the peculiar system, morality, Valdinogri, and illustrated by symbols. There was only one person that came up with it, and he just only second. And all the rest of the people were coming up with all the thoughts that when we talk to the outside world, charity, all those type of things, but not about what we do within the lodge. What is Freemasonry to us?
And I suppose, in a way, although you would argue that Freemasonry is contained in the ritual book, that's Freemasonry, but actually Freemasonry is personal to everyone.
Absolutely.
Who's involved.
Yeah.
Well, there's a big learning curve, isn't there? I mean, yourself, if you give us a bit of history about your own masonry journey.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been in masonry for 52 years.
It doesn't look old enough, does it?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I have been taking the potions ever since. It does help. The only thing that didn't work was the hair. That did fall out. That was useless.
Roger's okay.
That's right.
Saves on shampoo.
But my father was a mason, my grandfather was a mason, and my great-grandfather was
And they
a
were
mason.
all local?
No, my father and grandfather were, but my great-grandfather actually was a Gibraltarian Freemason. In 1889, I got a lovely picture of him in Royal Arch.
All right.
And he joined St Luke's. And I was thinking of, I've got in touch with the Gibraltar office to find out obviously it's difficult when you're 1889, where he was. And they found that he was actually at St Luke's.
All right.
And I said, fabulous. I think I might go out there next year. And they said, really would lovely to probably see you, Larry. You do know they speak Spanish, the whole thing, the ritual's in Spanish. And it's the only UGLE lodge where they speak Spanish.
And you said that was in Malta?
Gibraltar.
Sorry.
Gibraltar. So I will go, because actually, even though I don't speak Spanish really, but the rituals, don't you? You can sit there and just listen to it. And
you can do a Google Translate.
I can say, you got that wrong.
I went to a church service in Germany when I was mayor of my lovely town, and it was actually quite interesting just following the order of service in Germany. You start to try and pick out words, don't you? And it's a learning process again, isn't it? Yeah. And I think so. If you went to a Masonic meeting elsewhere in a foreign country, you would know roughly where they were, but you wouldn't necessarily. So you could still get something from it.
Yeah, that's right.
We had a member of our lodge who was Swiss, and when he went through the chair, he was proposed into the Swiss lodge, and that was amazing because they would open in Italian, or Spanish. Not Spanish, sorry, Italian, German, Swiss, or French, depending on what the master was. But when the master got installed as master, the 3 addresses were always done in 3 different languages.
Amazing.
And I said that they were all word perfect.
Well, it does. I mean, I must say that we often do that in the UK, don't we?
Yeah.
The master would stand up and we have no idea what he's saying.
Exactly.
The master installed me in Colford Lodge many years ago. He had that sort of ritual.
Did
I didn't know at the time. I thought how well he's done, but other people went, we weren't really sure how to follow it.
Just like chapter, 26 chapters and about 43 words.
Yeah.
I presume you're heavily involved in chapter as well?
Yeah.
And trying to influence
very
and
much
help
so.
with the collaboration of the two.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite a new role, isn't it? Now sort of bringing that in.
So are you learn development officer in chapter?
in chapter as well.
Mhm.
And is your knowledge of chapter as great as it is in craft?
Yeah, I think so. And I've talk about the plays. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've written a series of plays from the first, second, third, full, and Royal Arch, and they are actually plays. They're not demonstrations of the first degree with sort of a complement that sort of discusses what it is. It is actually a play. There is humour in it, but when I got to the Royal Arch, it was a really difficult one because it's such a deep subject. But I tell the story of when the Babylonians actually came and took Jerusalem. It's all part because there is actually an esoterical side of that. It's the trouble with all these with our rituals is we tell a story, like even in the third where Hiram dies. There's actually a real strong meaning behind that. And it's not what we're actually really seeing. So this is what the plays are trying to do, is sort of get people to think about.
And it's a different approach to learning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which I think I'm trying to think, was it the Pilgrim's Progress that
Lovely.
There was a play that the students did for a while.
Yeah.
We did it once, and that was a similar story from memory.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't remember who wrote that. That was, yeah.
So when you're hoping to launch these plays?
Well, we're just doing some rehearsals on the first. We'll launch the first, and then we'll do the second. I'm actually looking for some actors as well.
All right.
So if there are anyone out there listening that is a bit of a thespian, it'd be great, because the fact there are so many plays, and there are only 3 people in a play, but that actually will be presented.
So anyone coming forward, they've got to be in chapter as well as in a craft to be able.
No. I mean, no, not at all. Because someone in the second, if there's a guy that's just, that's actually just going through, could actually come and be one of the characters. But obviously, when you get to, if you're doing the third, you've got to be a master mason. And if you're doing the second, you've got to be a photographer. And obviously, Royal Arch, you've got to be a Royal Arch mason.
Right. So if anyone's interested, contact Larry.
Yes, please.
Absolutely. And how long are the plays, and how are you going to be presenting them?
Well, the plays are about 25 minutes long, and it'll be down to whether or not lodges. When I was orator, one of the things that used to happen was I get a phone call, then with a candidate, and got nothing happening. Can I go along? And so I would. But now we've actually got these plays that we can roll out as well, and it'll make it much more interesting, I think, in the lodges, and might get other people from other lodges to come to the lodge that's holding it. So it's just be a bit of.
And I think in a way you made a real point there. People contacting you saying, we've got nothing else to do. Can you come along? And perhaps what should be, and not to give you too much work, Larry, but what we should be saying is actually the work which you're doing, and it's an incredible piece of work you're doing, and a contribution to the province, but actually try and get Larry or somebody, or the play, which hopefully you don't have to attend, and incorporate that into your year of activity, rather than just trying to look for something when there's nothing else.
Exactly, because the plays themselves, a lodge actually could take it and do it themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there are only 3 people.
Yeah.
It's not a team that's coming along.
You wouldn't be directing it then?
No. I've written. I'm standing back.
And how long did you say the plays would be?
About 25 minutes.
About 25.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I didn't have much of a control. You know what these writers and these producers can be like if it's not done the way I wanted to.
I did do that in rehearsal. I said, you're not reading it properly.
So perhaps sell it on.
No.
Don't say it. But I bet it'd be lovely. It would be lovely to see it, and it'd be lovely to see it perhaps performed at Stewart's Lodge or PJ.
I think that
PJK.
PJK, that'd be a good one to do.
Well, when you go to like the Stewards Lodge, we're all Master Masons. No one actually ever does the third degree as such, even as just a general presentation of a third degree. It doesn't happen. So that would be a really good one to do. And you still masters. And things like that.
Yeah.
Now I know another thing you want to do in the coming years, is launch of Solomon into province.
Yeah, I thought from those seminars it was obvious that Solomon needed to be properly launched, so people knew what was there. And also we're doing it to try to assist new candidates if they come in. If they want to, they can sign in and we will send them a package. So we will do some of the work for them. Because one of the problems I think with Simon is so vast. Even I look at it and think, wow, where would you go? You know, if you didn't know masonry, where would you go? So we're going to try and plan it so that there's a way that people can understand how to use it easily. And also to give it to the mentors as well. So the mentors can then support the new people coming in with Solomon. So I'll send something to the new person and also to the mentor at the same time. And then the mentor can then help the new person. So that's the idea.
So excellent job that you're doing as learn and development officer. But there's a man behind the badge, as we say. You've got a very interesting past in your work career and life. So can we share some of that?
Yeah, sure. I was going back to, I think it was 2020. I was actually asked to become the performance coach for one of the British team equine disciplines. And it was the what we call a single carriage drive. If you think of Duke of Edinburgh with his 4 horses, they actually have you either have 1, 2, or 4. They're the disciplines. So I was asked to be the performance coach for the singles to start with for the World Championship, and it was an interesting working with elite athletes in many respects. And one of the things that really did get me is that because what we try to do is, instead of you're going to win, is to get them to perform at their utmost, you know, the ultimate situation that they can perform at, and then they've done their job. But it was after the event that surprised me was then a number actually contacted me to say that they were having sort of almost like a breakdown of the pressure of the job of getting to the World Championships, feeling maybe they hadn't done as well as they should have done. They felt empty. So then that's where I was sort of coming in, because I'm a sort of a trainer and of the NLP, neuralistic program.
That's it, yeah.
And also a hypnotherapist and a nutritionist. So that's what I was doing to actually try to support these people to get really to the top of where they could get.
And you were involved, you were the performance coach of the single driving team, but then you also support the American 3-day event team?
I did the American 3-day event team for looking after the horses there. I was actually treating the horses, and I was with Captain Mark Phillips at Burley, and that was a great experience, yeah. All the Americans kept saying to me is, Larry, how do you see Lancaster? And things like that. It was quite comical.
Yeah.
And you have a little story about the Duke of
Edinburgh. Well, he was a character, and when you're at the events, he would often be there, and he would be quite close. You know, he was very enthusiastic with the carriage driving. But one day he was, I can't remember, it was one of the big internationals he was about to be involved in. And the weather was atrocious. So the guy that was actually in charge of the venue decided he had to call it off. So he rang the Duke of Edinburgh and he said, Your Highness, unfortunately, I'm ringing you with bad news because the weather is so bad. He said, we're going to have to call the event off. And the Duke of Edinburgh said, You've done bloody well what? And he said, We've had to call it off. He said, Well, you can bloody well put it back on again. I've taken the day off to do this. So they did. They put it back on. Yes.
Did you ever actually meet the Duke of Edinburgh?
I stood next to him. How about that?
Yeah, that'll do. That'll do.
I think I brushed his jacket as I walked past.
Yeah, he didn't say who are you, or you.
Yeah, well, we didn't. I mean, one of the things we didn't do is to sort of go up to him. You know, he was a competitor. You know, he would be part of
Very
the group.
passionate in that.
Very passionate.
And I think that's what they liked when they're in that world. They are just one of everybody else.
Yeah,
And it's very difficult sometimes not to be somebody everybody looks and protects.
Yeah.
If you're in a safe environment, they don't want people going.
Yeah, you didn't really see any guards. I mean, he was in a safe environment with us all, so no one pestered.
No. Larry, it's been an absolute inspiration talking to you this afternoon.
Thank you.
And I think we can all do with learning a little bit more.
Yes, definitely.
But that really has given me the motivation I really do need. And I think I touched on the point earlier. When I'm reciting that ritual, we'd spend more time making sure we get it word perfect than understanding the meaning behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Larry, perhaps we need to have you back on again at some point.
Yeah,
particularly when you've developed the plays and we can do a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay, well done.
Thank you again for joining me on Suffolk Province's free and accepted podcasting as we explore the craft and Royal Arch. Please join me and my guests for more episodes.